Good afternoon and welcome to SWIM, S-W-I-M. That is the acronym for Say What You Mean. I am Travis Bridges and I have a question for you. Are you saying what you mean? It's very important that we do that. Oftentimes we say what we feel, what we think, what we believe, but we get lost in the sauce of what's actually happening. And I have a guest that's on right now, and I'm going to say something that she might not like, but I have noticed this in my golden age, that women in particular have a serious emotional side to them where men have a logical side. So we often clash in that ring or arena of trying to logic and reason and just make sense of even a basic conversation. So when I talk about saying what you mean, meaning what you say, that doesn't always work when it comes to the female persuasion of human beings. So in my efforts to try to bring awareness to how we listen, how we hear, what we gather from that information, and how we use that information to either persuade, manipulate, or convince a different perspective more centered around what's actually happening instead of how we're feeling. So that's what this live stream is about. My guest is on. As you will know, I don't give names, titles. We don't talk about locations. So it will only be the energy of my guest. So we will not say my guest's name. Let me just say welcome to you while you're here. Welcome to SWIM.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions about what I just said about what my live stream is about and what the concept is and why I'm here?
I'm curious. I'll say that.
No, I'm saying, do you have any questions about what I said already?
Not really. I don't say I have any questions because I'm still listening.
Okay, cool. With that being said, what I do is I take different topics and subjects and I talk about them. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to go to the top of the hour, and in less than 20 minutes, we're going to be off. Now, I have a variety of different topics, and I do this just for my therapy, just to be able to talk and get my perspectives out. Helps me to understand not only other people, world events, but myself as well, because when I hear myself talk, it helps me to hear what I sound like. I remember when this started, one of my friends said to me, you should record yourself so you can see what you sound like. And I said, that's a good idea. And I actually started doing it, and I do listen to what I sound like. And since 2020, of all of these that I've done, there's only one video that I held back because I just was not necessarily proud of how I sounded. So with that being said, I want to talk about something that's in the headlines, and not my clock starts now. So 20 minutes from now, we will actually be gone, or maybe even less. You are aware of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You have heard about it.
Only since his assassination, yes.
I am not a big fan or follower, but since I have looked at some of the things that he has, expounded upon, I find that he makes sense out of a lot of things because I am a logical and reasonable thinker. It doesn't always feel good, and I can see how it doesn't sound good sometimes, but feeling and sounding is not the bigger part of true reality. But I want to talk about something, and it's been on my mind, and I'm glad I have this opportunity to share it with you, and I'd appreciate your response. When we talk about slavery and inequality in America in particular, it is a very hard subject. What I'm going to say right now is not something I've heard a lot, and I only pray that I can get what it is I'm saying without being too harshly criticized or even judged for how I'm thinking. And I'm going to do the best I can because this is on my heart and I don't have any notes at all. I'm just going to go. So I'm going to ask you about an example that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head. I don't know a lot about firefighters or firefighting, but I do know that from being a Boy Scout and talking about campfires, when you put a campfire out, you don't just walk away from it because the coals are still hot and they can still ignite. Even in your home, whenever you put out a fire, you close the grate and you should monitor it for a little while. That happens with even surgery. When you first come out of surgery, you're not whole and healed. You have to heal after that. So many other things I can think of that after the initial impact, when a bomb explodes, the debris settles hours after, and the damage can take, God knows how long. So when we look at slavery from when it started, the slave trade from way back when cotton and tobacco and all of that was hot, and America was really being built on the backs of slaves, no one can deny that America rose and became very powerful during the 400 plus or the 400 years of slavery. That's no secret that the slaves, particularly from Africa that settled here, that came here, had a great impact. And during slavery time, no one can deny that those particular people and the people that were created from those people, whether it was through slave masters or mixing with other races, that people born from that slave trade were people that were singled out and were treated very differently than the people that were already here, primarily by the color of, I'm going to say, our skin. So for a good rock solid 400 years, the impact of slavery was breaded into my people and sometimes affects us today. So when I look at what has happened, let's just say from the mid 50s or definitely the 60s up until now, compared to 400 years. Now, supposedly slavery, the way we knew it, has stopped. No one's beating anybody, hanging them by trees the way they used to. You can't sell someone. You can't, make someone get off the street. You can't do those things that were normal and legal and acceptable in America by Americans, particularly American, white people, that you can do now. So yes, slavery is over. Yes, Black people today have the same opportunity to do most of the things that white people can do. So no one's ever questioning that. So that was my intro, by the way, and which gets into this DEI thing, diversity, equality, and inclusion. I don't even know what that means, and I don't care what it means. And let me just say how I feel about it. For the most part, even affirmative action, I can take it or leave it. DEI, I can take it or leave it. I understand why both of them are in place and why they were necessary at some time and why some people actually believe it's still necessary. But me, the way I think, I am going to always be the best man I can. And if that opportunity does not work out for me, then so be it. I'll continue to move on, because not being religious at all, because I'm not religious, I believe that my source is from a greater power than from any opportunity someone can provide for me. So even as a musician, as a writer, as a voiceover talent, I can invest in what it is I do and present it. And those who can identify with who I am and what I do, they will either select it or they won't. With the color of my skin, sure, it makes a difference in some ways, but overall, it does not impact how I prepare or how I present myself, or even how I feel about myself. Doesn't mean I don't feel the effects of the negative energy that was there those 400 years and before, and up until even the 50s and 60s and until now. So with that being said, when I hear the argument, particularly of Charlie Kirk and many of the people who say that there is no racism in America, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but there is definitely the effect of slavery on and the impact within society. There's no way that anyone in America can say that there is no different attitude. And there are a lot of people who have come a long ways in terms of how they feel about Black people and how some of us feel about people that are non-Black. Sure, time will change anything. However, to say that DEI or affirmative action is just a total waste of time, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I do not like the idea, and I'm going to close now, and I hope you have some input, to say that there is no need for some policing of how this country treated Blacks. And now that just because they can't do it anymore doesn't mean that they can't go through the front door, that they don't go through the side door, the chimney, or the roof, because some discrimination still does exist. So I'm not going to argue with anyone. Maybe there is, or maybe there isn't racism. Can a Black person have the same opportunities as anyone else? Yes, there are. But yes, there is still the smoldering of the smoke, and the coals are still hot and warm and can still start a fire. That's why you have these intense conversations and these back and forths that probably never end. Maybe America has apologized or, made good on that cruelty of slavery. Maybe they haven't. But I just want to say in closing, maybe a Black person does have the same opportunities as a white person, but there is residue of that energy, that spirit, that evil, that cruelty that still resists. And people that look like me, whether they admit it or not, just like me, I don't want any affirmative action, DEI. I can take it or leave it, but I know for certain that when I walk into a room, as prepared as I am, and as strong and confident as I am with what I bring to the table, I know for certain that that spirit still lives, and I am not going to act like it doesn't and say that there is absolutely no need for any forms of policing, whether it's through affirmative action or DEI or anything else. So with that being said, I just want to bring awareness in closing to the fact that slavery, the mentality of slavery, the energy, the spirit of that evil may not be legal, and it may not be as raw as it was, but that scar and that pain is still very present. That's all I'm going to say. If you have something to say, fine. If you don't, maybe we can end early. But please, thank you for listening, and please say something.
Yes, I've been pondering what to say, and I'm being careful of my words. And first and foremost, I do come out of the spirit of order. My father was military, I was military, and I was married to military. So probably 40 plus years of my life has been military. And military has one rule, it's order. And so I grew up with that. That's why I went in the military, because my father was a drill sergeant. And so when I went in basic training, it made sense why
Thank
my
you both for
father
listening.
was, thank you, that was me. I was the last of the women Army Corps, last of the WACs. Um, and so I'm grateful for that part of history. And that's what I say. And in comparison to the Bible is order. God is a God of order. And so, and I take that seriously in the natural as well as in the spirit. So when I see things like January 6th, automatically that was out of order, and out of order creates chaos. Slavery was chaos. Continuing to keep a race down because you don't like them is out of order, because we're to be in the order of God's order. If we're not coming out of in the beginning, God, then what are we working with? Chaos. And so that's just that's my life. I love order. I love it. Not anal order, just
Understand.
proper, pleasant, peaceful, because chaos can cause harm, damage, life-changing, never healing damage, because someone was abusive. Abuse is out of order. Um, Hate, racism is out of order. And that's how I personally, we're out of order. We're not dysfunctional, we're disobedient. And that's why people grew up in that. They don't know to, they don't know what order is because they've never had it.
It's just simply inhumane. That's another word, and it's a good word. So I respect you saying it's out of order. And it's just inhumane. Nobody would want to be treated like the way they treated people that look like me back then and even now. And I will say that my community, my culture, my people, there are some things we really do need to change. Some of the modern day discrimination may be caused by the way we respond to certain things and the way we respond to each other. But I just don't want to get out of here without saying that, yes, restitution should be no. We don't have an answer. I don't know how you pay back slaves when nobody was a slave owner and none of us are slaves. But there are generations of wealth still operating on that profit that was made during that time. And nobody's trying to do a whole lot to give any of that back in any kind of way. Let's just say we don't get it back. Let's just say there is going to be no restitution and there's going to be no acknowledgement of the cruelty. But don't act like it did not exist. And just because you can't find traces of it now from a legal perspective doesn't mean that those coals are still not hot. And people that look like me don't still feel some of that energy. So that's all I have to say. If you have anything more to say, that's fine.
Yes, I grew up in the 70s, so I was pro-Black, as soon as they start letting us learn about African American history, culture studies outside of the history books, it was a pleasure to learn. Even when James Brown wrote the song, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, that was like revolution. Just a little bit of good can erase. And when we start increasing our own confidence, our own self-esteem, and not look on the past of the things, thank God we're not living in slavery back then, because like a lot of people said that I'd have killed, I'd have hurt. We did have people like Nate Turner and others who stood up and revolutionized. I'm grateful for those stories that need to be told. They're just now coming to the surface of the history of we didn't just lay down and get beat. We didn't just lay down and take it. That we did stand up and fight for our rights because we knew it was out of order. We knew it was wrong. Even at 7 years old, for myself, I knew something was wrong. I don't know with all it came, but I ended up saving lives at 7 years old because I knew someone was doing something terribly wrong. And I just stood up as a child. So that stayed in me, that innate, no, that's wrong. And if we stand up for what's right, but some people, of course, they think what they think is right. And
well, that's why instead of using the word, what you said before, and even right, I think your word was order, which is a very good word.
yes,
I really like the word humane because humane involves human. We are all human. And one of my favorite scriptures says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And one of my professors said to me one time, let's modify that and say, do not do unto others as you would not have them done to you. So with that being said, I strongly believe in, if you don't want it done to you, don't do it to anyone else. And that's just the bottom line. And any of those slave owners from way back when, if we could have turned the tables around, they would not have wanted to be beaten, hung, raped, brutalized, sold off. And if it happened to them, they would want the mercy that we expected them to show then and maybe even now. So as it relates in closing to this DEI and affirmative action, I understand what they are saying when they say it brings attention to the color of someone's skin and maybe we shouldn't do it. I do get it. But the truth is, there are many Black people that would not have even gotten the opportunity to get the job because a Black person could not work in a certain place. So this was created so that type of discrimination was stopped. Whether we still need it today or not, I don't know. Whether it was fair back then or not. But what was there to do when it was obvious that we were seen differently, we were treated differently, we were respected in a very different way? And just to say because you can't do it legally now doesn't mean you still can't discriminate. So DEI or affirmative action, I can take it or leave it. For those that it works for effectively, so be it. And for those who don't, I understand why people don't like that idea. But with that being said, I'm going to close. Okay. So again, this is SWIM, SWYM. That is the acronym for say what you mean. It's important that we say what we mean. As I said in the beginning, oftentimes we always say what we feel. We say what we think. We definitely say what we have been indoctrinated to believe. But when we have hard, tough conversations and we put the information, the evidence, truth, and facts on the table, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether you feel good about it or not, you cannot deny logic and reasoning. I like to filter everything through these three basic, filters. And I like to say that there's an answer for every question. There is a solution for every problem if we are willing to remove our personal ego, our feelings, our beliefs, our desires, what we want. If we put it on the table, there's not a slave owner on the planet that would have come to a table to reason and say, hey, would you want to be treated like this? That's what I mean, removing the fact that you're going to have wealth built over centuries. So when you put that in case, that's the ego, that's the preference. Well, I'm going to do this because it's going to bring wealth to my family. But when you bring logic and reasoning to the table, you walk away with truth, facts, and even evidence. And with that being said, I like to use these filters in closing. There's universal principles. You can't change a universal principle. We all have to abide by that. There's something that has been accepted now because, called universal social norms. There's a reasonable expectation from every human being that we can say, no, that's probably not right. It's just a society thing. And then there's law. We should abide by what is considered law. For that word you said, law has to do more with order and not so much as in humanity. So universal principles, social norms, and law is what you can filter everything through to come to a logical, sensible, and reasonable conclusion. That doesn't mean you're going to like it or it's going to work in your favor, but we're not supposed to always get just what we want. We're not supposed to always feel good, but the truth should always be welcome. And if we know the truth, that scripture that says we will be free, we will be free. Some of us don't want to be free. Some of us want just what we want. And that's the bottom line. So with that being said, do me a small favor. Find someone you need to say I love you to. Don't just say it. Show it, mean it, let it be true. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to have therapy. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist or a therapist. I'm none of those things other than a person who I believe I have a reasonable way of thinking and logic, to present myself. And believe it or not, there are things that I don't like that I just accept because it just is. What I like and what I want is very important, but it doesn't trump order or humanity. So with that being said, I'll say it again. Find someone you need to say I love you to. Don't just say it. Show it, mean it, let it be true. Till the next time, take good care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.